Hello, I'm glad you're here. Get comfortable. Maybe make yourself some tea. This topic matters and it deserves time. Before we begin, I want to ask you something. Take a moment and answer honestly just to yourself. No one is watching. No one is judging. Do you ever feel an inner discomfort? A tightness in your stomach? Maybe it shows up when you do something that theoretically is perfectly fine, but inside you feel it's wrong, that you shouldn't. Maybe you buy yourself something nice and the voice immediately says, "That's wasteful." Maybe you rest on the weekend and feel like you're wasting time. Maybe you say no to someone and then spend the next few hours analyzing whether you're being selfish. Maybe you succeed, and instead of feeling happy, you wait for someone to discover that you don't actually deserve it. This often has a source, a deep source, in childhood, in what we were taught, in what we heard, in how we were raised, in adults' looks, in their silence, in what was praised and what was punished. Those early experiences shape us more than we often realize, and they can influence our lives even when our parents are long gone, even when we live on another continent, even when we consciously rejected their values. Before we go further, I have a question for you. Think about it and write in the comments. What is one belief from childhood that still affects how you judge yourself as an adult? Maybe it was, "Don't brag, money doesn't buy happiness, duties first, pleasures later. Don't be so sensitive, big girls don't cry, don't think you're better than others. What will people say?" Whatever comes to mind. You don't have to have an answer ready. Maybe it will come while you're watching. That's okay too. Share it if you want. Sometimes simply reading that someone else struggles with similar feelings can bring relief. What are we actually dealing with? Each of us comes into the world as a blank slate. We don't know what is good or bad. We don't know how to behave. We don't know who we are. We don't even know we exist as a separate person. We have to learn all of that. And then adults appear. Parents, grandparents, teachers, friends, other caregivers, neighbors, spiritual leaders, coaches. They teach us the world. They teach us rules. They teach us how to function in society. They teach us what is acceptable and what isn't. What will earn praise and what will bring punishment. What will secure love and what will trigger rejection. And that's natural, necessary. A child needs boundaries, needs guidance. Without them, it wouldn't survive. The problem begins when those rules become rigid, when there's no room for exceptions, no flexibility, when they're delivered with an emotional charge, with criticism, rejection, with the threat of losing love. Imagine this. A little girl runs around the house. She's joyful, laughing loudly. Her energy fills the entire apartment. And suddenly she hears, "Calm down. Good girls don't behave like that." What kind of child are you? What happens in her mind? She doesn't think, "Oh, mom has a headache. That's why she wants quiet." Or, "She had a stressful day at work." Or, "Maybe the neighbors complained about the noise." Number? A child doesn't have that perspective. The child's brain can't do that kind of analysis yet. The child thinks something is wrong with me. My joy is bad. My energy is a problem. I should be different. I should be quieter, smaller, less myself. And that's how the inner critic is born. The voice we carry for years, sometimes for an entire lifetime. The voice that tells us we are not good enough, that we should be different, that something is wrong with us. Psychologist Susan Forward calls this a toxic legacy, a set of rules and beliefs we absorb so early that they start to feel like part of our identity. As adults, we often follow them not because we consciously chose them, but because we never learned to question them. What's the difference between guilt and shame? This is a crucial distinction, and we often confuse it. We use the words interchangeably. But they are different experiences, they affect us differently, and they require different approaches. Guilt says, I did something bad. Shame says, I am bad. Do you feel the difference? Guilt is about behavior, a specific action, a specific situation. It can be repaired. You can apologize. You can change your behavior in the future. You can learn from it. Guilt can even be healthy. It helps us live according to our values. It helps repair relationships. Shame is about the whole person. It touches identity. It doesn't say I did something bad. It says I am bad, flawed, not enough. It's deeper, more painful, and much harder to work through. Because how do you fix something that you simply are? When as a child you heard, how could you do that? You're so rude. You always have to ruin everything. That built shame. Because the message was about you as a person, not your behavior, not a specific situation, about all of you. But when you heard, what you did made me sad. Let's talk about it. How can we fix it? That built healthy guilt. The kind that teaches, not wounds. The kind that helps you grow, not shut down. Dr. Brené Brown, a researcher of shame and vulnerability, interviewed thousands of people over more than 2 decades. She analyzed hundreds of stories. In her book, The Gifts of Imperfection, she describes shame as an epidemic of our time. She writes that shame is linked to dependency, addiction, depression, violence, eating disorders, workplace bullying, and many other problems. Brown found that people who were most resilient to shame had one thing in common. They understood the difference between shame and guilt, and they actively practiced what she calls shame resilience. Shame didn't disappear from their lives completely, maybe that's impossible, but they learned to recognize it, work through it, and not let it run their lives. We'll talk about that later in the part about what you can do. How does this show up in adult life? Let me give you a few examples. They're based on real stories, though I changed names and details. See if anything sounds familiar, if you recognize yourself or someone you know. Example 1, Kate. Kate is 35. She's a lawyer in a big firm. She's professionally successful. Great results. Clients appreciate her. Her boss says she's one of the best on the team. But every time someone praises her, she feels uncomfortable. She downplays her achievements. She says, "It's nothing. Anyone could do it," or "I was just lucky." Or she changes the subject in meetings. She speaks little even though she has great ideas. She's afraid that if she speaks up, people will see she doesn't actually know what she's doing, that she's a fraud, that someone will expose her. Where did it come from? As a child, Kate heard, "Don't brag. Modesty is a virtue. Don't put yourself above others." When she brought home good grades, her mother said, "Good, but don't think you're better than others." When she won a recitation contest, her grandmother said, "Don't you start acting like a star." Those words were meant to protect her against arrogance, against others' envy, maybe even against disappointment if one day she didn't do so well. But the result is that now she can't accept recognition. She feels guilty when someone notices her talent. She feels like she's doing something wrong by being good at what she does. Example 2, Tom. Tom is 42. He runs his own business. He works 12 hours a day, often weekends too. He doesn't remember the last time he took a vacation. When his wife asks him to rest, to spend time with the family, he feels anger and shame. Because for him, rest equals laziness. Fun equals wasting time. Recently, a doctor told him he has to slow down, that his body is sending signals: high blood pressure, insomnia, constant fatigue. Tom nodded, left the office, and drove straight to the company to finish a project. In his home, there was a rule: hard work is everything. If you don't work, you don't eat. Nothing is free. You have to earn it. Tom's father worked physically hard. He came home exhausted. He didn't have time to play with his son, but he kept saying, "You'll see, it'll pay off. Hard work always pays off." Tom internalized it so deeply that relaxation became morally suspicious. Rest is weakness. Fun is childish. A real man works all the time until it's done, until exhaustion. Example 3. Amy. Amy is 28. She's been in a relationship for 3 years. She loves her partner. She wants to be with him. But every time they argue, Amy immediately apologizes, even when it's not her fault, even when her partner hurt her, even when she has every right to be angry. Her pattern looks like this: conflict, panic, apology, relief. No matter what it's about, no matter who was right. Amy always reaches out first, always says "I'm sorry" first, even when inside she knows it wasn't fair. Why? Because in childhood she learned that conflict is bad, that good girls don't argue, that harmony matters most at any cost. Amy's parents never argued in front of her, and if there was tension, everyone pretended nothing was happening. The topic was swept under the rug. No one taught her that you can disagree and still love each other. That conflict can be healthy. That anger is a normal emotion. Amy is afraid of her own anger. For her, anger is shameful, something to get rid of as quickly as possible. When she feels angry, she also feels like she's a bad person, like she's failing, like she's ruining the relationship. Example 4. Meg. Meg is 50. Her children are grown up. They've moved out. In theory, she now has time for herself. She could do things she didn't have time for years: travel, learn new things, meet friends. But every time she does something for herself, she feels guilty. Maybe she should call her daughter. Maybe she should help her mother. Maybe she should do something useful instead of going to an exhibition. Meg's mother was a woman who devoted her entire life to her family. She never had her own interests, her own time, her own space. She was proud of that sacrifice. And Meg learned that this is what a good woman looks like: a good mother, a good daughter. Now, when Meg has a chance to live differently, she feels guilty because she's living in a way her mother would never have accepted, even if her mother is no longer alive, even if no one is judging her. The voice in her head judges her for her. This example shows something important. What we learned in childhood doesn't disappear. It lives in us. It affects our decisions, our relationships, how we treat ourselves, what we fear, what we desire, and often we don't see it because these patterns are like water to a fish, so obvious they're invisible, so ever-present they feel like just how things are. Now let's look at where it comes from. Why are we so vulnerable to childhood messages? Why does something we heard 30 or 40 years ago still have so much power over us? There are specific reasons: psychological, neurobiological, evolutionary. And it's worth understanding them, because understanding is the first step toward change. It's hard to change something you don't understand. Reason 1. The neuroplasticity of the child's brain. A child's brain is like a sponge. It absorbs everything. and it doesn't filter, it doesn't evaluate, it doesn't analyze critically, it doesn't ask, does this make sense? Is it true? Do I want to accept it? Up to about age 7, children spend a lot of time in what scientists call the theta state, a brainwave state where the mind is especially suggestible, easily programmed. It's similar to the state adults enter right before falling asleep or during deep meditation, a state where the subconscious is wide open. Everything a child hears from important adults goes straight into the subconscious without filters, without analysis, without the right to protest. Psychologist Daniel Kahneman, Nobel Prize laureate, describes this as the work of System 1, fast, automatic, and unconscious. Early formed thinking and reaction patterns switch on effortlessly and outside our control, shaping decisions and behavior before reflective analysis even begins. That's why you can be an educated, intelligent adult woman. You can have a PhD. You can know you deserve rest and still feel guilty for buying yourself a more expensive coffee. Because deep inside, there's the message of a 5-year-old. Don't waste money. Who do you think you are? The conscious mind may say, this is absurd, it's just coffee. But the subconscious still sends stress signals because it doesn't listen to arguments. It responds to old programs. Reason 2, the need to belong. For a child, belonging is a matter of survival, literally, not metaphorically. Imagine our ancestors thousands of years ago on the savannah, in a cave. A child cast out of the group had no chance of survival. It couldn't find food, protect itself from predators, or survive the cold. For hundreds of thousands of years of evolution, being accepted by the group meant living. Being rejected meant dying. That memory is coded into us at the level of instincts, deep in the amygdala, the part of the brain responsible for fear and survival. And even though today rejection by parents doesn't mean physical death, our brain reacts as if it does. So a child will do anything to be accepted, to be loved, to belong. It will give up its own needs, hide its true emotions, become what adults expect. If a parent communicates, I love you when you are good, the child understands, I must be good to be loved. Being myself is dangerous. And it suppresses everything that isn't good, anger, sadness, needs, desires, authenticity. Dr. Gabor Mate, physician and psychotherapist, calls this attachment trauma. In his work, he shows how children give up authenticity to preserve connection with caregivers. In When the Body Says No, he writes, a child will always choose attachment over authenticity, never the other way around. It's not a conscious decision. It's a survival instinct. This is key to understanding many of our patterns. Maybe you didn't like being told to be quiet. Maybe you protested inside. Maybe you felt it was unfair, but you'd rather be quiet and be loved than express yourself and risk rejection. That was the only possible choice then, as a child. The problem is that the pattern still runs even when you're an adult. Even when you no longer need your parents' approval to survive. Even when you have your own home, your own money, your own life. The pattern remains and switches on automatically. Reason 3, modeling and imitation. We don't learn everything from words. Much, maybe most, we learn by observing what we see, how the important adults behave. If your mother constantly sacrificed herself, never spoke about her needs, always put others first, ate what was left, slept the least, never rested, you learned that this is what a good woman looks like. A good mother, a good person, even if no one ever said it directly. Even if your mother sometimes said, take care of yourself, sweetheart. Her actions said something else. and actions are stronger than words. Psychologist Albert Bandura's classic experiment showed the power of observational learning. Children watched adults' behavior and later reproduced it even without direct instructions, rewards, or punishments. Just observation was enough. What's more, children also absorb behaviors that weren't directed at them. Simply witnessing someone's behavior proved sufficient. That's why we repeat our parents' patterns, even the ones we hated, even the ones we swore we'd never repeat, even the ones we saw as children and thought, I will never be like that. I know many people who say, I promised myself I would never be like my mother, and then they hear her words coming out of their own mouths, or I swore I wouldn't be as strict as my father. And then they look at themselves and see him. This isn't your fault, it isn't weakness of character, it's the force of neurobiology. The force of patterns encoded before you had any chance to choose consciously. Reason 4. Social and cultural messages. Is not only family that shapes us, it's culture, religion, society, school, media, neighbors, the environment we grow up in. We inherit a strong cultural legacy. Certain values are deeply rooted, passed from generation to generation. Modesty, hard work, self-sacrifice, obedience to authority, respect for elders, not showing off, not standing out. These aren't bad values in themselves. They can serve us, they can build community. The problem begins when they become rigid rules, when there's no room for individuality, for different choices, for being different, for making mistakes and searching for your own path. If you grew up where what will people say mattered more than your feelings, you learn that other people's opinions are more important than your truth. If you grew up where women's ambition was viewed with suspicion, you learn to hide your dreams, minimize your desires, apologize for your success. If you grew up in a very religious environment where certain topics were taboo, you may have learned to feel ashamed of your body, your sexuality, your doubts. These messages are often invisible, woven into everyday life so deeply they feel obvious, natural, the only right way. That's just how it is. That's what you do. That's what's proper. Reason 5. Lack of alternative models. It's hard to question something if you don't know an alternative. It's hard to imagine another world when you've only ever known one. If everyone around you lived by the same rules, if you never saw other ways of functioning, if everyone sacrificed themselves, worked beyond their limits, never spoke about their needs, how would you know it could be different? It's a bit like the story about fish. 2 young fish swim along and meet an older fish. The older fish says, "Good morning, how's the water today?" The young fish swim on. After a moment, one asks the other, "What is water?" Water is the environment they live in, so obvious it's invisible. So omnipresent it doesn't even occur to them that it could be otherwise. Childhood beliefs are like that, like water, everywhere, invisible. They feel like how things are, not like a rule someone invented, not like a choice you can question, just reality. Only when we meet people who live differently, when we read books, watch films, travel, only then, sometimes, something clicks. Oh, so it can be different. You can rest without guilt. You can speak about your needs. You can say no without explaining yourself. And even then, we often feel like they can, but I can't. Scientific research confirms these mechanisms. Analyses by researchers at University College London, based on long-term cohort studies involving over 10,000 people, show that parenting style, and the quality of early life relationships have a lasting impact on emotional well-being in adulthood. This impact persists for decades and remains significant even after accounting for later life experiences such as adolescence, career, or financial circumstances. People who experience excessive psychological control from parents' behaviors, like inducing guilt, withdrawing love, excessive criticism, comparing them to other children, had a significantly higher risk of emotional problems in adulthood, anxiety, depression, and relationship difficulties. These findings show that your feelings have a real foundation. This isn't self-pity. This isn't blaming your parents for everything. These are psychological mechanisms supported by science. Understanding these mechanisms doesn't mean you're doomed. It doesn't mean there's nothing you can do. Quite the opposite. Understanding is a starting point for change. Now we move to the most important part. The reason you're here. What can you do with all of this? What concrete steps can you take? Not all of these steps will fit you. Each of us is different history, different needs, different temperament, different stage of life. Take what resonates, leave what doesn't. Don't force yourself into anything. Don't give yourself another reason to feel guilty that you should do all the steps and you're not. And remember, change doesn't have to be big and sudden. Small steps have enormous power, even if you don't see it right away, even if they seem insignificant. Water wears away stone not by force, but by persistence. Here are 5 steps that can help you. Step 1. Recognize the voice of the inner critic. The first step sounds simple, but it's fundamental. Without it, the next steps are hard, and it's not simple at all. Start noticing that voice in your head that tells you you're doing something wrong, that you should be different, that you're not enough, that others are better, that someone will soon see who you really are. It's there, talking all the time. But we often don't notice because we're so used to it, because it's been with us since childhood, because it sounds like us, like our own thought, like truth. But it isn't truth, it's a pattern, an echo of the past. The voice of someone who once told us how to behave. Practical exercise. For the next week, keep an inner critic journal. You don't need to write essays. A few sentences are enough. Every time you feel guilt or shame, pause, take a deep breath, and write down, what did I just do or think? The specific situation. What does my inner critic say? The exact words. What does it trigger in my body? Tight stomach, tense shoulders, pressure in the chest. Whose voice is it? Who used to say similar things to me? That last question is key. Often we discover that the inner critic sounds exactly like mom or dad or a primary school teacher who made you sit in the back row, or a grandmother who shook her head in disapproval, or an older sibling who laughed at you. When you notice it, something shifts. That voice loses some of its power because you see it's not truth, not fact. It's an echo of the past, someone else's voice that moved into your head. An example from my experience. I noticed that every time I tried to celebrate something, a success at work, a birthday, any joyful occasion, a voice would appear saying, "Don't get too happy, because then it will be worse. Don't tempt fate." For years I thought it was my own thought, that it was wisdom, that it was being sensible. When I reflected, I remembered my grandmother. She lost a lot during the war home, loved ones, wealth. She learned not to attach to good moments because they could disappear quickly. It was her survival. That strategy made sense for her. it protected her in her time, in her circumstances. But for a granddaughter living in completely different times, it became a prison. It didn't allow me to fully enjoy life, to celebrate, to be happy without fear. When I understood that, I could start changing the narrative. I could say, "Thank you, Grandma, for trying to protect me, but I live in different times, and I can allow myself joy, not overnight, but gradually." Step 2. Verify your beliefs. Once you begin to notice these voices and recognize them, it's time for the next step, verification. Ask yourself, is this belief really mine? Did I choose it consciously as an adult? Does it serve me? Does it make my life better? Does it help me become the person I want to be? These are powerful questions, and they can be uncomfortable. They can shake you, because often we discover we're living by rules we never consciously chose. Rules we were given, rules we accepted without asking, rules that felt so obvious we never thought to question them. Practical exercise. Choose one belief that often triggers guilt or shame. Start with one. For example, I should always put other people's needs before my own. Rest is laziness. I shouldn't talk about my achievements. Now ask yourself and write the answers down. Not in your head, on paper. That matters. Where did this belief come from? When did I first hear it? Who taught it to me? And with what words? In what situation? How did it make sense back then in that context, for that person? Does it make sense now in my current life, my current circumstances? What would happen if I allowed myself to think differently? What's the worst case scenario? And what's the most likely? What could be an alternative, more balanced belief? Maybe an alternative to, I should always put others first would be, I can care for others and care for myself at the same time. I don't have to choose. Both matter. Or, when I'm rested and happy, I have more to give. Self-care isn't selfish. It's an investment. Maybe an alternative to rest is laziness would be, rest is part of productivity. My body and mind need recovery to function well. This isn't about becoming selfish, about not caring about others. It's about balance. Giving yourself permission to be a whole human being with needs and desires, not only obligations. Rejecting harsh, rigid rules doesn't lead to indulgence or laziness. It doesn't make us worse people. It leads to healthier functioning, better relationships, greater effectiveness. A harsh inner critic is not a good motivator. It does the opposite, it paralyzes. Step 3. Practice self-compassion. This word may sound unfamiliar. Self-compassion. Maybe it sounds strange, maybe even a bit selfish, but it's something simple and powerful. It means treating yourself the way you would treat a good friend, someone you care about, someone you love. Imagine your friend comes to you and says, I feel awful. I yelled at my child today. I was tired and I lost it. I'm a terrible mother. I'm not cut out for this. What would you say? Probably something like, hey, everyone loses patience sometimes. You're human, not a robot. That doesn't mean you're a bad mother. Parenting is hard. Give yourself a break. Tomorrow is a new day. Right? That's how you would respond? Now think about what you say to yourself in a similar situation. Most likely something much harsher. Great. Here we go again. How many times will this happen? What kind of mother am I? My child will hate me. I'm hopeless. The difference is striking. Most of us hold ourselves to standards we would never apply to others. We speak to ourselves in ways we would never speak to a friend, or to a child, or to someone we love. Practical exercise. When you feel guilty or ashamed, pause literally. Pause for a moment. Place a hand on your heart. It's a simple gesture that calms the nervous system. Research shows that touch, even your own, can release oxytocin and soothe the nervous system. Then say to yourself out loud or in your mind 3 things. This is hard. What I'm feeling is hard. Acknowledging suffering. Suffering is part of being human. Others would feel this too. I'm not alone. Common humanity. May I give myself the kindness I need. May I treat myself the way I would treat a friend. Self-kindness. It may feel awkward at first, even silly. You might laugh at yourself. That's normal. Many of us were taught that self-compassion is selfish, that you should be tough, that feeling sorry for yourself is weakness. Regular self-compassion practice changes how we respond to difficult emotions. It literally changes the brain. Neuroscience studies by Olga Klimecki and Tanya Singer using MRI showed that even a few weeks of compassion training can reduce amygdala reactivity, the brain structure linked to fear and stress responses. Participants were calmer, less emotionally reactive, and coped better with difficult experiences. This isn't just nice-sounding words. It's neurobiology. It's science. Dr. Kristin Neff, in her book Self-Compassion, The Proven Power of Being Kind to Yourself, describes her own path into this practice. She talks about growing up in a family where harsh self-criticism was normal, where mistakes were unacceptable, where you had to be the best. For years she punished herself for every mistake, demanded perfection, and her inner voice was ruthless. She spoke to herself in ways she would never speak to anyone else. Only research on compassion opened her eyes. She saw in the data what she couldn't see in herself. That self-criticism, which was supposed to motivate her, actually paralyzed her, that the harsh inner voice didn't help her be better. It helped her be more stressed, more exhausted, more unhappy. She describes a turning point when, during a painful divorce, she began consciously using on herself the techniques she had previously only studied. Not a magical overnight transformation, just daily, small moments of choosing. Instead of sinking into self-criticism and failure, she began speaking to herself like a friend. She wrote in her journal, "This is really hard. Divorce is painful for anyone. I'm not weak for suffering. I'm human, one day at a time." It didn't remove the pain. The pain remained. But it changed her relationship with it. She could experience it without an extra layer of self-judgment, without beating herself up for feeling what she felt. Step 4. Build new experiences. Our beliefs don't live only in the mind. They live in the body, in emotional memory, in the nervous system. That's why intellectual work alone isn't enough. It's not enough to understand where your patterns came from. To read about it, reflect, analyze. You also have to give yourself new experiences. Experiences that prove, hey, the world doesn't end if I do it differently. I wasn't rejected, nothing terrible happened. The body has to experience safety in the new situation. Only then does the old pattern begin to lose power. Practical exercise. Choose one small thing that would normally trigger guilt or discomfort and do it consciously, on purpose. Maybe it's saying no without a long explanation. Just, no, I can't, period. Taking a free afternoon without guilt, without doing at least something useful. Buying yourself something nice for no occasion, not for a birthday, not as a reward, just because you want it, asking for help instead of handling everything alone, accepting a compliment without downplaying it, saying thank you instead of it's nothing, sharing your opinion even when it differs from the majority, spending time alone without feeling you should be with someone. Choose something small, really small, safe. This is not the moment for big gestures. This is the moment for tiny experiment. And observe what happens. Discomfort will likely show up. Maybe guilt, shame, fear. That's normal. Old programs are activating. The body is sounding an alarm. But also notice, nothing bad happened. The world didn't explode. No one rejected you. No one stopped loving you. No one said you're a terrible person. These new experiences act like evidence that you can live differently and that it's safe. Each one weakens the old pattern and builds a new one. Peter A. Levine, the creator of somatic experiencing, emphasizes the importance of bodily experience in trauma work. In his view, for entrenched fear patterns to soften, the nervous system must experience a sense of safety in a new situation. Conversation and intellectual understanding are often not enough. What matters is what happens in the body. It doesn't happen instantly. It's a process. But every small experience builds a new pathway in the brain. Over time, that pathway becomes stronger, and the old one weaker. I once met a woman who grew up in a home where expressing needs was seen as selfish. Her mother would say, "Don't be so demanding." Where do these whims come from? Throughout adult life, she couldn't ask for what she wanted. In relationships, she accepted whatever her partner suggested. In work, she didn't negotiate raises. In restaurants, she ordered the first thing on the menu because she was afraid of hesitating too long. She started with something very small at a cafe. Instead of saying, "I'll have a coffee," she said, "Could you make it a bit stronger? And could I have oat milk instead of regular?" Sounds trivial, right? Even funny. But for her, it was huge. She expressed a preference. She asked for something specific for herself. Her heart beat faster. She felt like she was doing something illegal, and she watched what would happen. The barista smiled and said, "Sure, no problem," and that was it, nothing more. No eye rolling. No? What a demanding customer. No, don't be ridiculous, just, "Sure, no problem." But it was a new experience, one that said, you can ask for what you want, people won't be angry. This is normal, this is acceptable. From there, she moved to bigger things, slowly, gradually, over months. Now, years later, she can ask for a raise. She can tell her husband what she needs in a relationship. She can set boundaries. She can say no. She can say, "I want." It all started with stronger coffee. Step 5. Engage support. The final step, no less important. Maybe even the most important. Change is harder in isolation. Much easier when we have support when we're not alone, when someone walks with us. That support might be a therapist or psychologist. If you have the access and financial means, this is the best option for deeper work. A professional can help you see patterns you might miss, guide you through the process, provide a safe space, and won't judge or dismiss you. Not all therapy is the same. If one therapist isn't a good fit, it doesn't mean therapy doesn't work. It means the therapist wasn't right for you. You can keep looking. A support group. In many places, there are groups for people working on themselves, personal growth groups. groups for adult children of dysfunctional families, including online. Being with people who share similar experiences can be deeply healing. You see you're not alone, that others struggle with the same things, that change is possible. A trusted friend or partner, someone who can listen without judging, someone you can say to, I'm working on this childhood pattern, can you tell me when you notice I'm slipping into it? Someone who cheers for you, reminds you you're okay when you forget. Important, not everyone is good support. Some people, even loving ones, may minimize your struggles. They may say, come on, you're overreacting. Or, it's been years, just forget it. That's not necessarily malice. It can be their own defense, but it doesn't help. Look for people who can listen, who don't give advice when you didn't ask, who don't minimize, who can simply be present. Books and educational resources. Sometimes a good book is like a conversation with a wise mentor. It can open your eyes, give words to what you feel, show you that you're not alone. I'll recommend a few at the end. Think about who in your life could be a source of support. Maybe it's someone you trust, someone who has been through a similar process, someone who won't judge you, someone who can listen. You don't have to tell everything at once. You don't have to open up completely. You can start small. You could say, I'm trying to understand how my childhood affects my current behavior. I'm reading and watching things about it. Could we talk about it sometimes? Or, I've noticed I often apologize even when it's not my fault. I'm trying to change that. Can you tell me when you see it happening? Saying something out loud has power. It names the experience. It makes it more real and paradoxically less overwhelming and less shameful. Because when we speak it out loud, we bring it out of the shadow, and shame feeds on the shadow. When we name something in a safe space, shame loses some of its power. When we share our struggles, paradoxically, we become stronger and we create deeper bonds with others. Expression has power. Speaking about difficult things, though, hard heals. You don't have to carry it alone. We've reached the end. This was a long video, a lot of themes, a lot of information. Thank you for staying. Let's summarize what we talked about. First, if you feel guilt or shame when your behavior differs from what you were taught in childhood, that's completely normal. You're not broken. You're not weak. You're not the only one. You're a human being with a history like every one of us. These feelings have sources in the child's brain that absorbed everything without filters, in the need to belong that made you adapt to adults' expectations, in the models you observed, in the culture that shaped you, in the lack of alternative patterns. This isn't your fault. These are mechanisms that operate in all of us. Understanding these mechanisms doesn't change the past. It won't turn back time. It won't make childhood different, but it can change your future. It can give you tools. It can open doors. We covered 5 steps that can help. Recognize the voice of the inner critic. Notice when it speaks. Ask whose voice it really is. Is it your thought or an echo from someone in your past? Verify your beliefs. Check whether these are truly your rules chosen consciously as an adult, whether they serve you, whether they make your life better. Practice self-compassion. Treat yourself the way you would treat a good friend, with kindness and understanding, not harsh criticism. Build new experiences. Do small things differently. Show yourself and your body that it's safe. Collect evidence that another way of living is possible. Engage support. Don't go through it alone. Find someone who can listen. A therapist, a friend, a group. Talking about hard things heals. I also want to say something important at the end. These steps won't look the same for everyone. Maybe some of them won't resonate with you. Maybe you feel they're not for you. That's okay. Take what fits. Leave the rest. Come back to it later. Maybe something else will feel relevant then. And don't expect change to be fast and dramatic. This isn't a TV series where one conversation changes everything, where the character has a breakthrough and from the next episode on becomes a completely different person. Real life doesn't work that way. This is a process. It takes months, sometimes years, sometimes a lifetime, but it's a life worth living. There will be days when you fall back into old patterns, when you feel that familiar guilt or shame again, when the inner critic is louder than ever, when you think it's all pointless, that nothing is changing. And that's okay too. It's part of the process. It's not failure. Progress isn't linear. 2 steps forward, 1 step back, sometimes 3 steps back, and then forward again. What matters is that you keep going, not fast, not perfectly, not in a straight line, just step by step. Every small step matters even if you don't see it. Every moment of awareness, every pause to notice a pattern, every gentle word to yourself, every small experience of doing something differently. All of that builds slowly under the surface. To quote Carl Jung, one of the most influential psychologists in history, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. You have influence. You can make the unconscious conscious. You can see these patterns and gradually, gently change them. Not all at once, not overnight, but step by step. Your childhood shaped you, but it doesn't have to define you. Thank you for being here, for staying. Thank you for your time, for your openness. I know these topics can be difficult. Going back to childhood, looking closely at beliefs we've carried for years, questioning what once seemed obvious, it takes courage. It takes willingness. In the decision to be here until the end says something about you. That you're ready, that you want to, that you're searching. So if you feel moved right now, that's normal. Maybe tearful, maybe angry, maybe sad, maybe hopeful, maybe all of it at once. Give yourself time to digest it, make some tea, go for a walk, write a few lines in your journal, or simply let yourself be with these thoughts without judging, without analyzing. Just be. If what you heard was helpful, if you took something from it, I'd be grateful if you leave a like. It helps other people who are looking for content like this. And if you want more conversations about psychology, self-understanding, building a better life, and dealing with difficult emotions, I invite you to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next episodes. There are more, and there will be more. And remember the question from the beginning. What is one belief from childhood that still affects how you judge yourself as an adult? Share it in the comments if you want. Your story might help someone else feel less alone. Sometimes one word, one story, one comment can change someone's day, or even more. I'm rooting for you, truly. See you in the next video. Take good care. Recommended materials for those who want to explore this topic more. Books: Brené Brown, The Gifts of Imperfection. Christine Neff, Self-Compassion, The Proven Power of Being Kind to Yourself. Susan Forward, Toxic Parent. Gabor Mate. when the body says no,